There's a voice running in the background of almost everything you do, and you've probably never once questioned who's actually speaking. It's the voice that needs to be right in arguments you've already lost. The one that replays an insult for days, plotting the comeback you never said. The one that compares your life to everyone else's highlight reel and always finds you lacking. That voice isn't you. It's your ego, and the philosophers who understood it best considered fighting it the single hardest, most important battle a person could ever undertake. You've probably heard the word ego used casually, someone with a big ego, meaning arrogant or self-important. But the philosophical meaning runs much deeper than that. Your ego isn't just vanity. It's the entire construction of who you think you are, built out of comparisons, achievements, opinions, and the constant, exhausting project of managing how you're perceived. It's the part of you that experiences a compliment as validation and a criticism as an attack, because it has fused your actual worth with the story it's telling about you. The Stoics didn't use the word ego, but they were describing exactly this when they talked about the difference between your true self and your false impressions of yourself. Epictetus taught that most human suffering comes not from events themselves, but from the judgments layered on top of them, and your ego is the primary machine generating those judgments. It's the part of you insisting that a rude comment from a stranger means something about your worth, that losing an argument means something about your intelligence, that someone else's success means something about your failure. None of those conclusions are facts. They're your ego's interpretations, presented to you so convincingly that you rarely question where they came from. Here's what makes the ego so difficult to fight. It doesn't announce itself as the enemy. It disguises itself as you. When your ego gets hurt, it doesn't feel like a construction getting threatened, it feels like your entire self is under attack, because the ego has spent your whole life convincing you that it is you. This is why criticism can feel so disproportionately painful, and why being wrong in front of other people can trigger a reaction completely out of scale with what actually happened. You're not just processing information. You're defending a fragile structure that's mistaken itself for your identity. Marcus Aurelius fought this battle constantly, despite holding more real, external power than almost anyone alive in his era. He reminded himself, repeatedly, that the praise of others added nothing real to him, and their criticism took nothing real away, because his actual worth was never dependent on their opinions in the first place. This wasn't arrogance. It was the opposite of arrogance. It was a quiet refusal to let his sense of self be constructed entirely out of external validation, which is exactly what an unchecked ego demands constantly: more praise, more proof, more evidence that you matter, because it can never actually satisfy itself permanently. Buddhism goes even further, treating the ego not just as something to manage, but as something almost entirely illusory, a story your mind tells about a fixed, separate self that doesn't actually hold up under close examination. You are not the same person you were 10 years ago, cell by cell, thought by thought, yet your ego insists on a continuous, solid identity that must be protected and defended at all costs. Loosening your grip on that fixed story isn't about becoming nobody. It's about realizing that you were never as fragile or as separate as your ego convinced you that you were. You can start noticing your own ego in small, specific moments if you pay attention. Notice the flash of defensiveness when someone questions your idea before you've even considered whether they might be right. Notice the urge to mention an achievement in conversation for no real reason except to be seen a certain way. Notice how much better or worse your entire mood feels based on a single comment online from a stranger you'll never meet. None of these reactions are character flaws. They're your ego doing exactly what egos do, treating every interaction as evidence for or against your worth. The goal here isn't to destroy your ego completely, and even the philosophers who wrote most extensively about this weren't claiming that was possible. The goal is to notice it operating, to catch it in the act, and to create enough space between yourself and its reactions that you get to choose your response instead of being run entirely by its impulses. That tiny gap, the moment where you notice the defensive urge rising and choose not to act on it immediately, is where actual freedom lives. Not the freedom of having no ego at all, but the freedom of no longer being completely controlled by one. This fight never fully ends. Even the Stoics who wrote about it most clearly kept practicing this daily, for their entire lives, because the ego doesn't get defeated once and stay defeated. It resets constantly, quietly rebuilding itself the moment you stop paying attention. But every time you catch it, name it, and choose your actual values over its demand for validation, you get a little freer, a little steadier, a little less at the mercy of a voice that was never really you in the first place. If this shifted something for you, Hit subscribe, because this channel exists to bring you exactly this kind of clear, practical philosophy. Drop a comment telling me the moment your ego showed up most recently, the flash of defensiveness, the need to be right, the comparison that stung more than it should have, because naming it is the first step to loosening its grip. Like this video if it made you pause, and come back soon, because next time we're exploring the Stoic case for deleting the apps that are quietly running your attention, and why digital minimalism might be the most modern application of ancient philosophy you've never tried.